Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss about reflexes. So basically, we are going to discuss about how reflexes happen. There is a mechanism behind reflexes and what are the common reflexes that we elicit neurologically. So without much ado, we'll get into the topic. So what is a reflex? A reflex is an involuntary response to a sensory stimulus. So the sensory stimulus could be a pinprick, or it could be throwing a light, or it could be tapping with a knee hammer. So in either case, it is going to produce a response to the part in which the stimulus had been given, to which the sensory stimulus had been given. So based on this, we can divide the reflexes into superficial reflex and deep reflex. So when the sensory stimulus is applied to skin or mucous membrane, it is called as a superficial reflex, whereas if it were to be applied to the tendon or periosteum, it is called as a deep reflex, or better known as the deep tendon reflex. So that is what are the two types of reflexes, the superficial reflex and the deep reflex. So basically in superficial reflex, for example, the corneal and conjunctival reflex, you touch the cornea and conjunctiva with a wisp of cotton, that is essentially mucous membrane. Or as in the case of a superficial abdominal reflex, you scratch the abdominal wall, the anterior abdominal wall. In that way, it is going to be, the sensation is going to be stimulated in the superficial parts, that is the skin or the mucous membrane. Whereas in the deep tendon reflex, as the name tells itself, the stimulus is given to the tendon. So what is the stimulus that is given to the tendon? It is actually a stretch stimulus. The stimulus, that is a knee hammer that strikes on the tendon, it stretches the tendon. So the stretch receptor for the muscle is going to be, that is the muscle lengthening, that is going to cause the muscle lengthening. So that will be the muscle spindle. Okay, so the muscle spindle will be the one receptor that is responsible for the receptor for the deep tendon reflex. So what are the components of a reflex? The reflex has two components. One is the segmental component, which we are all aware of. That is the local reflex center, that is the local reflex arc. That is the afferent, the center and the efferent. So that will be the local reflex arc. And then we have the suprasegmental inputs arising from the cortex. These are the descending central pathways which will control, modulate and regulate the segmental activity. So this is very important. This is where the Gendrasek maneuver comes into play. Okay, so it is because of these suprasegmental influences that the Gendrasek maneuver works. So we'll discuss that in a little bit. So basically for now, what you have to understand is there are two components for a reflex. One is the segmental and the other is the suprasegmental part. So this is the segmental part or the local reflex arc, where you have an afferent, which is the sensory nerve, which is receiving the stimulus. Essentially, it will be an endorgan receptor, and then it will be taken out by the sensory nerve to the reflex center. The reflex center will be in the brainstem or the spinal cord. Brainstem, as in the case of the corneal, conjunctival, gag reflex, that kind of stuff, and spinal cord in the case of majority of the deep tendon reflexes. Okay, and then you have an efferent, that is a motor nerve, which responds to the stimulus. So this is what is the reflex arc. So these deep tendon reflexes, like I told you, are elicited by application of a stretch stimulus to either the tendon or the periosteum. Okay, so you apply a stretch stimulus, that is you tap the tendon with the knee hammer, which is going to stretch the tendon essentially. So that is why it is called as a deep tendon reflex, and the kind of sensation that it applies is actually a stretch stimulus. So what is the receptor now? It will be the muscle spindle. So muscle spindle is responsible for the lengthening, is responsible for recognizing the lengthening of the muscle. So what is the physiology behind the reflex? This is very important. So as I told you, as the muscle lengthens, the sudden lengthening of the muscle fibers will stretch the spindles. So these will send the information via the primary spindle afferents to the spinal cord. And once it reaches the spinal cord, which is the center for the regulation, these spindle afferents will directly synapse with the alpha motor neurons innervating the muscle. So from then on, the motor nerve will go on to innervate the muscle to cause a muscle contraction. So that is how it is happening. So it is actually a sequence of lengthening, and that lengthening being analyzed by the spinal cord, and from the spinal cord via the alpha motor neurons, these reaching the motor nerve and eventually the muscle to cause its contraction and then eventually relaxation of the muscle fibers. So this is what is a stretch reflex. So you have to understand that essentially it is a lengthening, that is a muscle spindle that is going to carry the information which will be taken on to the spinal cord, and then from the spinal cord, in the spinal cord will be synapsing with the alpha motor neurons, and these alpha motor neurons are nothing but these motor nerves which will cause the muscle contraction. So what is a biceps jerk? So now we are going into the reflexes and we are going to see how to do it as well, how to examine the reflexes as well. So as you can see here in the image that I have shown you, the biceps jerk, you can see the arm is placed relaxed in the examiner's hand, and you can see the forearm in a midway between flexion and extension. Okay, and the forearm should be slightly pronated. Okay, so why? Because we are going to test the biceps. You know, the biceps is not just the flexor of the elbow, but it is also a supinator. Okay, so it has two roles. A majority of the function is going to be flexion, but it also does a little bit of supination as well. So we are going to demonstrate both of these in this biceps jerk. So place the thumb on the patient's biceps tendon and strike on your thumb with a knee hammer. So what happens? The result will be flexion of the elbow and supination. A certain amount of supination you can see, especially for that only you have to keep the forearm in a mid-pronated position, the mid position between supination and pronation. So in that way you can see that the response will be a flexion of the elbow and supination. So the root value will be predominantly C5 as well as C6. The answer should be predominantly C5 because C5 is more responsible for that, and the nerve responsible will be the musculocutaneous nerve. Now coming to the supinator jerk. The supinator jerk is also called as the radial periosteal reflex, or otherwise it is the brachioradialis reflex as well. So how do you do it? As you can see in the image, the arm should be held loosely by the examiner, and the forearm should be in semi-flexion and semi-pronation. So you just tap on the styloid process of the radius. Just above the styloid process of the radius, you give a good tap, and what happens is it is going to be a supination. So it is going to be flexion of the elbow with supination. Predominantly a supination will happen, and the root value will be again C5, C6, but predominantly C6 here. It is mediated by the radial nerve. Now coming to the triceps. So as you can see here, the forearm is placed midway between flexion and extension. You can see it very clearly between flexion and extension. Because why? Because you place it in a neutral position, because you will have to show the you will have to visibly see whether it is a flexion or extension that is happening. So for that you have to place in all the reflexes, you have to place it in a mid position between flexion and extension. The reason being, some of the muscles will cause flexion and the other is going to cause extension. As in this case, triceps, it is going to be an extensor of the elbow. So the forearm is placed midway between flexion and extension, and you tap on the triceps tendon just above its insertion on the olecranon process. So just above, right above the olecranon process of the ulna, you give a good tap. So what happens? What happens is the extension of the elbow. So what is it mediated by? It is mediated by again by radial nerve, but the root value will be C7 and C8. C7 predominantly. Now the last upper limb reflex that is very important is the finger flexor reflex. This is a very important reflex because it is going to be exaggerated in cervical compressive myelopathy kind of stuff. So this is one place where it is very brightly, briskly elicited in case of myelopathy. So what happens here is, patient's hand is in supination. As you can see here, the patient's hand in supination, and it should be well rested on the table or on his lap even. And you place your fingers over his fingers, just as shown in the image, and you give a good tap. You give a good tap over your fingers, and you will see the distal phalanges flexing. So this is what is the finger flexor reflex. So flexion of fingers and the distal phalanx of the thumb, the root value will be C8 and T1. Now coming to the lower limb reflexes. So now first knee jerk. So how to do a knee jerk? So eliciting knee jerk is very important. So patient sits in a chair with the knee slightly extended and heels resting on the floor. Or simply you can ask the patient to sit on a table with his legs dangling. So and you give a good tap over the just beneath the patella. And so what happens here is the contraction of the quadriceps muscle. So you have a contraction of the quadriceps muscle and this results in knee extension. So essentially there will be a knee extension, and the nerve that is mediating it will be the femoral nerve, the root value being L2 to L4. Now coming to the ankle jerk. Now the eliciting of ankle jerk is a little bit complex, and you have to be very good in positioning the patient properly. First thing, the thigh should be in abduction and external rotation, and the knee should be flexed. And you strike on the Achilles tendon just above its insertion on the calcaneum. Okay, you strike on the Achilles tendon. So there are two kinds of positions that they tell. One is the frog leg position or the position of a 4. So either way you can keep it, but the thing is the thigh should be abducted and external rotated, and the knee should be flexed. And essentially you should flex, you should dorsiflex the patient's ankle. Okay, so why this happens is because when you tap on the Achilles tendon, the result will be plantar flexion of the foot. It is going to be a plantar flexion. So essentially when you're dorsiflexing the foot while applying the reflex, you can feel that the patient's foot pushing your hand down. So there will be a plantar flexion. So the nerve root will be the tibial nerve mediated by S1 nerve root. So now that we have dealt with majority of reflexes, we need to grade them. So grading reflexes, grade 0 is absent, grade 1 or 1 plus, either way you can tell it as it is present but diminished, grade 2 will be normal, grade 3 will be increased but not pathological, grade 4 will be hyperactive and it is frequently associated with a sustained clonus, that is flapping of the whichever part you are stimulating. For example, ankle clonus, there will be flapping of the feet. In patella clonus, there will be flapping of the patella above and below. So these are signs which are seen in case of myelopathy. So you have to be very good in them. In any UMN type of palsy, you are going to get sustained clonus. Even in case of strokes, you tend to get that. So now coming to the very important topic. In case you are not able to elicit a reflex, what do? That is what is called as Gendrasek maneuver. So see, first and foremost, let's be very clear. This Gendrasek maneuver is only for the lower limb reflexes. Okay, so essentially the patient pulls the hands apart with his fingers flexed and hooked together, and then you percuss the tendon. That is your ankle jerk or your knee jerk. And this effect is very brief. It lasts only for 1 to 6 seconds. It is useful only in lower extremity reflexes, because basically you are asking the patient to pull his hands apart, and while doing that you are putting the upper limbs in a constant position where you are not going to assess anything. So this Gendrasek maneuver will be essential only for the lower extremity reflexes. So what for the upper extremity reflexes? For the upper extremity reflexes, you can ask the patient to look up at the ceiling or tightly bite his teeth, that is grit his teeth, or even cough, or squeeze the knees together, or to take a deep breath. So all these are reflex enforcements for upper limb, to elicit the upper limb reflexes. This is very commonly asked in exams. Gendrasek maneuver is for lower limb. So what do you do for upper limb? So you can either ask the patient to look at the ceiling, or squeeze the knees, or cough, or take a deep breath. So all these are reflex reinforcements for eliciting the upper limb reflexes. So why does it happen? The mechanism behind this is going to be supraspinal, fusiomotor, and long loop mechanisms. So with that, our discussion on the reflexes is complete. So in the next video, what I'll do is I'll tell you how reflexes are hyperreflexive and what are hyperreflexive reflexes and how to analyze them. Thank you.